Hey everyone, this is James Wilson with MTB Strength Training Systems and BikeJames.com, and today I just want to share my thoughts on Red Bull Rampage. If you're a mountain biker, then you know that this last weekend was the Red Bull Rampage. The videos are in everybody's social media feeds, both the highlights and the lowlights. And it really got a lot of riders talking because unfortunately there were some pretty big injuries that came out of that. In fact, one of them, the guy that tried the double backflip off of the big, step down drop jump thing, and he under rotated and face planted at Mach 10. For a second you watch that and you wonder if that dude's still alive, right? And we still don't know the full extent of his injuries. He says he has a lower back injury, which could be code for something really bad. Hopefully it's not a life-changing injury, but he was just one of several riders that got really hurt, that ended up in the hospital from the Rampage. And so again, a lot of discussion around this has been around, has this gone too far? Are riders, pushing the limits too hard? And the next step is to, for someone to actually get killed doing this, which no one wants to see. And so what I want to do is just, share my thoughts on it, give you a little bit of history, how we got here, where we're currently at, and then also my thoughts on how we might be able to move forward and save Rampage from itself, right? It's one thing to, say, hey, they've gone too far, but it's like, well, what's the answer, right? Like, we're just going to not have Red Bull Rampage anymore, or is there some potential solution that might save it from itself? So I've been riding mountain bikes since 2000. I remember getting my first mountain bike on February 11th of 2000. I actually bought my first mountain bike to ride to work. And I had no intentions of actually mountain biking. I thought, went into the bike shop. I wanted to get a bike. I thought road bikes looked kind of weenie. Mountain bike looked like a BMX bike like I rode when I was a kid. So I was like, I'm going to go with a mountain bike. But I just happened to live in Santa Barbara at the time, and Santa Barbara's got some really great mountain biking trails. And I didn't realize it when I got my bike. And one weekend I got bored and I'd heard that there was some trails and stuff. And so I actually ended up just pedaling my bike up a fire road and riding it back down. That was my first mountain bike ride. And I was immediately hooked. I was like, holy shit, this is the greatest thing ever. And so I just became obsessed with riding, and it's led me to where I'm at today. But coincidentally, 2000 was also the birth of the freeride era. Now, again, if you've been riding for 15 years or less, then you probably have no direct memories of this era of mountain biking. But freeride completely changed how people think about mountain biking. And for a while, the industry, fully embraced it. Like everything was a freeride bike. Anything that had 4 inches or more of travel was marketed as a freeride bike. I remember looking through magazines and I'm looking at a bike and I'm like, dude, that is not a freeride bike. Like, that is just a trail bike, but it's got freeride in the name of it because that was the hot thing that everybody wanted to be a freerider. So there was some big drivers behind these changes. Again, things that we just take for granted as riders today, but really, like, your modern mountain bike was born during this era. They're really not, there have been some small changes, but the big components of what we think of as mountain bikes really were born from this era. And one of those were really strong single crown forks, like the Marzocchi Z1 completely changed the game. Like, before that, everything was a lightweight kind of race fork. Now, obviously, you had your downhill bikes with your dual crown forks, but you're not going to be able to ride those on the trail. A little bit more limited with what you can do with those things. And so, but the Marzocchi Z1 comes along, and all of a sudden you've got this single crown fork that you can pedal to the top of the hill and can take massive abuse on the way back down. The other thing was disc brakes. Like, when I started riding, disc brakes were just starting to get, like, good, reliable disc brakes were just starting to become the norm. And so I actually started riding on V brakes. I had V brakes on several of my bikes before I finally got some disc brakes, Hayes disc brakes, man. Like, that was it. If you had a Marzocchi Z1 and Hayes disc brakes on your bike, like, you were good to go, man. You could freaking charge on those things. And so again, like, the really strong, reliable suspension and disc brakes are really kind of the things that make mountain biking today what it is. Our ability to punish these bikes and for us to be able to control our speed and stop. Like, those are the big things that change what riders thought was possible on their bikes. So during this time, though, the main driver of the free ride movement were video series. So things like the Down and Double Down, Cranked, New World Disorder. I still remember going to Interbike back when they still had Interbike, and going to the premieres of the newest Cranked or New World Disorder that they were holding there, and it was a big thing. Like everyone looked forward every year to the new one of these things coming out and seeing like, man, what are these guys doing? They're, what's new with what they're able to do. And there were some attempts at holding some free ride competitions before this, but the logistics were hard. It was going to require some capital investment to really do it right. And this is where Red Bull came in. In 2001, Red Bull saw a marketing opportunity in the free ride movement, and so they decided to hold the Red Bull Rampage. And the Red Bull Rampage again changed everything in the mountain biking world, right? Like it's kind of like UFC 1 and MMA, right? Like you have a distinct mark in time. Like there's the time before Red Bull Rampage and the time after that. Like how people looked at mountain biking, what they thought was possible, was never the same after that first Red Bull Rampage. So, but a problem emerged though, because the mountain bike industry realized that you can't market free ride to your average rider. Like if you're trying to grow the sport, then free ride is spectacular. It's visually spectacular, but it's dangerous. You're going to crash, you're going to get dirty, you're going to get bloody, and your average casual rider is just not into that. And especially if you're trying to like draw over like road cyclists over into mountain biking, that's just not going to happen with free ride, right? And so they literally killed free ride overnight. I remember within like a couple of months, all of a sudden things, every bike went from being a free ride bike to there being no free ride bikes, and everything is a lightweight cross country bike with an inverted stem. Again, if you're trying to like market this to roadies or like your average casual rider, like that's a much easier thing to market to people. So they killed the Red Bull Rampage in 2004, and we're trying to shove cross country down our throats. Just kind of like a side note, enduro came along and saved their ass, because that's a little bit more like what your core rider would like to do, rather than cross country riding and racing. Again, nothing wrong with that, but you're not really like pushing the limits of what you can do in the same ways as you are with enduro. Like that was the thing with enduro, is it's like, well, this is like trail riding, which is like, yeah, that's what people want to do. So, but anyway, it was like I said, during this time is when slope style started to gain momentum. Like there'd been some slope style stuff before, but it really started to take off around this time. And a couple reasons for that. One, it was a lot easier to put on an event, right? Like the Red Bull Rampage and free ride competitions, like, man, that's a massive undertaking to put that thing on. Like for a slope style event, all you need is a slope and some jumps. And so you could set these courses up anywhere, and you got riders pulling these crazy tricks. So it's, again, visually spectacular, easy to hold. And it was, it was a good evolution of the sport. So in 2008, Red Bull saw another money-making opportunity, and they decided to revive the Red Bull Rampage, but this time with a slope style twist, right? So the riders were getting to where they could do these tricks, but they needed to be able to do them on the big mountain riding. How do we combine big mountain riding with slope style? So at first they would put in some wooden features that would let riders, do their stuff. They had like, drops, and, remember the big canyon gap that they had. And so, but these were pre-made wooden features that riders could incorporate into their lines. Now, the thing that really changed everything though is when they started to get water there. Like the dirt in Virgin, Utah is super dry. It's extremely hard to pack. And so, but when they started getting water to the top of the mountain and allowing the build crews to use water to shape features, that's what gave birth to what we think of as the Red Bull Rampage now. I mean, you looked at this last one and it was just, one feature after another. It'd be connected with some gnarly chutes and stuff like that. But for the most part, everything people were riding was sculpted features. So again, that leads us to where we're at today. The riders also have gotten way better, and they continue to push the limits of what they're able to do on the bike. But here's the problem, right? These limits have consequences. The bigger the jump or the drop, the bigger the consequences are from the crashes. And that's the thing that you got to keep in mind, right? Like this last event, it saw a lot of riders getting seriously hurt. I mean, you had 50% of the women's field, like 5 out of the 10 ladies ended up in the hospital, and you had 3 of the men end up in the hospital. And again, some of these with potentially life-changing injuries. And again, injuries of, crashes and injuries, you're never going to eliminate them from the sport. But it really, like I said, there was something about this last one that left a lot of riders thinking like, man, like, have we gone too far? Like, is the next step seeing someone die if they're not able to pull off one of their moves and they crash? So like I said, the problem isn't the rider's ability to stick these features, right? Like they can do these massive things and these really cool things. It's, can their body survive the consequences if they don't land it? You remember a few years ago, like, the hard line had this like, jump over a river. And again, there's like some debate as to like whether that was ever actually supposed to be part of the course or was it just like a marketing gimmick. But man, they had like 2, maybe 3 people send that thing, and then they shut it down because again, the consequences for that thing were literally death. And so again, it's not that the riders couldn't do it, right? It's just that if things went wrong, the consequences were going to be way too high. So how do you balance this, right? How do you balance rider safety with putting on a great show? And so this is where, my thoughts on, I've been thinking about this, and my thoughts were that I think it's time for the Red Bull Rampage to get back to its roots, which is big mountain free ride without so many sculpted features. It's the sculpted features that are allowing riders the opportunities to hit these massive jumps and drops and try and do tricks on them as well. Then that's what's leading to the potential consequences. So I don't think that they should take away all of them. I think that maybe limiting riders to 1 or 2 sculpted features on their runs. Again, like you saw some of these runs and it was just like sculpted feature after sculpted feature after sculpted feature, the whole, like 80%, 90% of their run was on like some sort of like sculpted run in and then, sculpted lip and then a sculpted landing and run out. And so again, that's what is giving riders these opportunities to push the limits. And so if we kind of, it's kind of like in the NFL, right? Like the NFL had to change their rules to save the athletes from themselves, because athletes, they're not going to do it. The athletes think they're invincible, right? Like no rider from the Red Bull Rampage is going to want to do what I'm suggesting. But just like the NFL had to change its rules in order to save the players from themselves, I think that Red Bull is going to have to do something to save the riders from themselves. Like how do you still give them the opportunities to do spectacular stuff, but you limit the size of what they're able to do or the number of times that they're putting themselves in danger, and limit the opportunities for really bad consequences from this. So it wouldn't be as spectacular, right? But you're also not going to have to worry about somebody potentially dying again, mountain biking is a dangerous sport in general, right? Like we're not trying to eliminate risk. That's just not it. It's just we're trying to limit the amount of times and the magnitude of the risk. Plus the other thing is that's mountain biking, right? Like mountain biking is using a mountain or a trail as your canvas to express your riding ability on. So I will say, I know I'm being a bit hypocritical here because I've certainly sculpted some jumps and hit some jumps. I've built wooden features and rode a bunch of skinnies. I joke around like I've sacrificed many body parts to the mountain biking gods, some of them more than once. Right, so I am extremely familiar with the highs and the lows of doing this. And so, I love riding that stuff, but I also know the physical consequences that come with these things. So I'm not saying that those things shouldn't be a part of mountain biking. I'm saying that for the Rampage to survive, because honestly, I think that if someone gets killed at the Rampage, they're going to think real hard about holding another one, right? And so if we want it to survive, they have to find a better balance between how to incorporate these things into the spirit of mountain biking. So, I love free ride. I've always seen myself as a free rider, and I love the Red Bull Rampage. I just don't want to see someone getting killed in this arms race that Red Bull Rampage has become. So again, this is just my opinion. I know it probably has some flaws. I just want to share my thoughts on it since I don't want to see it shut down. I think Red Bull Rampage is the last remnant of what I think was the best era in mountain biking, and that if it gets back to its roots of the big mountain free ride and less away from the slope style, that you'll save the riders from themselves and still be able to put on a great show. So anyways, like I said, just my opinion. Let me know what you think. You can drop a comment or shoot me an email at james@bikejames.com. Always love to hear from people and what they think. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. Be sure to check me out at bikejames.com. Sign up for my weekly newsletter. Get a free copy of my strength and cardio basics for the 40 plus rider. It's got a 4-week training program that you can use to get you started using smart training tactics for the 40 plus rider. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed this, and I'll talk to everybody next time.